Hey, yo everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review. Today we're going to be doing a Wonder Woman Earth 1. Take a look at this comic cover right here. So, Wonder Woman Earth 1, this has been a long-awaited graphic novel, especially for me because I've been enjoying the Earth 1 comic book graphic line that's been coming out. Basically what the Earth 1 line is, for those of you that don't know, is basically DC releasing more of a back to basics with their comic book superheroes in graphic novel form. So you get an individual volume with a self-contained story. There is connectivity between each story, so if you read volume 1 and read volume 2 and read volume 3, there's kind of elements that transition from each volume, but for the most part you can read each story individually, giving easy access to casual comic book fans or people looking to get into comic books. The other interesting thing about the Earth 1 line is its tone. And you're probably asking, what do you mean by the tone of the comics? Well, with the exception of the Teen Titans, which is kind of the oddball of the group, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman's comics all kind of go back to their original character conception and design. For example, Batman isn't this super hyper-intelligent, world's greatest detective, world's greatest martial artist, Bat God. He is a man that's a vigilante that has some training, but he's not perfect. He makes mistakes. He has bare minimum to work with, and what he does work with is what he's got. He doesn't have an arsenal of tools and weapons at his disposal. Superman, rather than being God among men and a light-hearted and almost smiles when he saves you kind of individual, he's more of a rough and tough, kind of breaks and enters, kind of vigilante-like sort. And again, this is akin to the Golden Age roots. Batman was a lot less Bat God back in the day and very much a man in a cape and a cowl with a little bit of training. And Superman was kind of a dick back in the day. I recommend going reading the Archive or Chronicle series where you get to see the origin of Superman. He would break and enter and threaten people's lives. It was pretty brutal, but I mean, the fact of the matter remains is we're going back to kind of the tone of the characters during the Golden Age, and the same could be said about Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman has a kind of an interesting concept and design to her when she first got introduced. Now, the creator of Wonder Woman, whose name does escape me right now, and I know that's pretty bad, but basically he's an interesting fellow. Not only did he help create the lie detector test, which kind of goes into Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, being able to compel people to tell the truth, he also had an interesting personal life. He had a lot of different ideas and philosophies on bondage and submission and people's lifestyles. I mean, to suit their own, I really don't care what people do in their private life, but it's interesting because you kind of see this transition over into the comics, at least in the Golden Age. For example, Wonder Woman has her bracers, which is a symbol of the submission or enslavement that she had back in the day, well, at least the Amazons did, by man. And then Wonder Woman's power is taken when she is bound. Again, another interesting philosophy that came out of the creator that got transitioned from his personal life onto the comic. I recommend reading some of this information online because it's really interesting to see how much of a creator is superimposed on the character. Eventually, Wonder Woman kind of stepped away from those ideals, but our good friend, good old Grant Morrison, decided to bring it back in full force with Wonder Woman Earth 1. Originally titled The Trial of Wonder Woman, which is probably a very appropriate title for this, is that basically Wonder Woman is being portrayed in that Golden Age fashion, but with her modernized twists. So, with that said, let's get right into the story itself. And I'm not going to spend too long on the story because, well, there's not a huge in-depth story there that I have to go into, at least plot-wise. Standard Wonder Woman stuff. She's on Paradise Island. Her mother refuses her to leave. Stephen Trevor washes up on shore. She helps out Stephen Trevor. Curious by man's world, she leaves, experiences man's world. But here's the twist. She comes back, and she's put on trial for her decision to go into man's world. And through that trial, we get a different kind of philosophy between the ideals of the Themyscirians, or the Amazons, who are these hyper-intelligent and hyper-advanced technological race of females, as opposed to man's world, which is, again, lack of a better term, or modern civilization and their ideals and their way of life. And basically Wonder Woman is trying to prove to her mother that, it's time for us to move on and move forward, and maybe their ideals aren't necessarily bad. Maybe there's some kind of a middle ground that can be found. There is no true antagonist in this. There's some kind of antagonist, but really is that trial of Wonder Woman. And at the end of the day, it has a satisfying story, although very simple, which brings us into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Other than the fact that it has absolutely gorgeous art, Wonder Woman's the Wonder Woman Earth 1, I almost called it the Trial of Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman Earth 1 has a really good idea behind it. Like I said, there's no big bombastic fight against some supervillain that's going to take over the world, and only Wonder Woman stands in the way of defeating this villain. No. This is a discussion of ideals and philosophies clashing with each other. A good chunk of the book is Wonder Woman going to man's world and kind of experiencing it for what it is, and the next chunk of the book is Wonder Woman explaining her experiences while other people are put on trial. Not on trial, but take the stand. It's interesting to see the different ideas and the different philosophies that go into that. The overall design of each character is really good, whether it's from Hippolyta to Wonder Woman to the interpretations of the equivalent of Donna Troy and Cassandra Sandmark in here, because they kind of are in here, but they kind of aren't, but they kind of are, but they kind of aren't. Just kind of representations of them. The overall designs of all the characters are pretty good. I particularly like that Etta Candy went back to her almost comical-looking version back in the Golden Age. Etta Candy has had a lot of changes throughout the years. She went from an incredibly fat woman to an overweight woman, to an older woman, to a white woman, to a black woman. She was a lawyer, then a military personnel, then a secret agent. So she's had so many changes, and it's kind of interesting to see her go back to her, again, very comical, college-y, fraternity kind of look that she had. So the overall designs are really good. The dialogue holds true, and it's Grant Morrison, so the dialogue is going to hold true. And the overall pace in the story is very nicely done. Bad. The only bad I can say about this is it's probably not the best jumping on point for Wonder Woman. There are a few things I would recommend before it, like George Perez's run on Wonder Woman, or Brian Azzarello's New 52 run, or even the Rebirth stuff that is going to be coming out soon. But with that said, once you read those as a jumping on point for Wonder Woman, this is a good side story to read. And with this, I am thoroughly pleased to see what is to come from Wonder Woman on Earth 1. And so far, the Earth 1 books have been very well done. Whether it's Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman, or Teen Titans. Can't forget about Teen Titans. It has been an enjoyable ride for these comics. And on the whole, I give this comic a 4.5 out of 5. Pick it up. If you're a big Wonder Woman fan, it's a must-have. If you're a casual comic book fan, maybe something that you want to get off on the side when you have a little extra cash. And if you're curious into Wonder Woman, you should get it, but it shouldn't be your first book. Go after something else first beforehand. With that said, I'm going to end this review here. This is Andrew saying, peace out for now.